My fellow Aussians, let us be glad, let us be grateful, let us be frankly a little bit unsurprised because these principal casting rumours have been circulating for the last 3 calendar months, but let us also be thrillified about the brand new casting for the West End production of Wicked. Oh my god, hey, welcome back to my theatre-themed YouTube channel, or hello to you if you're listening on podcast platforms. My name is Mickey Joe, and I am obsessed with all things theatre, including the musical Wicked! Recently seen on screen, but of course first seen on stage back in the early 2000s on Broadway, and a few years later in the West End, where it continues to play at the Apollo Victoria Theatre, and has recently celebrated its, let me do some maths very quickly, 18th, 19th birthday in the West End, 2006, 2004. This year it will celebrate its 19th. There you go. Coming up to that 20th anniversary, a very auspicious date indeed. It will celebrate that in September 2026, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because today we want to discuss the hugely exciting brand new casting for the London production. I have been waiting to make this video. I already have tickets for the first performance of this new cast because I was hearing rumours, as I believe many of us were for the last few months, about who the Elphaba and Glinda performers were likely to be. I was hearing rumours about who was in for it. I was also hearing other rumours about changes they've made to the way that the show is performed and contracted when it comes to Elphaba. I'll explain what I mean in today's video as we talk through the newly announced cast. Now, for those of you watching from around the world, here on my channel I try to cover international theatre news. Principally, we tend to talk about what is happening in the West End and on Broadway, and the New York production of Wicked at the Gershwin Theatre ought to be announcing their new principal casting soon, I think, as well, and if rumours are to be believed, they will also be addressing a significant milestone in the show's history. I don't want to allude to anything until it's officially confirmed, but as and when that happens, hopefully you will see and hear me talking about it here on YouTube as well. For now, though, let's talk about why I'm so excited for this West End cast, and if you haven't been back to see Wicked in a while in the West End or ever, why this is the time to book tickets. So I will begin by saying I think the current cast at Wicked is terrific. I saw them last year, a couple of months before the film was released. Obviously, we are all particularly excited about Wicked. I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I personally am particularly excited about Wicked at the moment because of this extraordinary reception that the film adaptation is having. The film adaptation, which of course is going to be continued with Wicked for Good coming out later this year. It's a great time to be Wicked the musical. The Broadway production recently took over $5 million in 1 week, setting an all-time box office record. The West End production, we have no idea how that box office has been affected by the release of the film because we don't publish our grosses here in London for some baffling reason. We hate financial transparency, I guess. But what I will say is that while all of this attention gained by the film benefits Wicked significantly on stage and just makes people more excited about the brand and going to see it and like Wicked afternoon tea events and the merchandise and everything else that's happening around that, it does also put an additional spotlight on it. Not that it didn't have that before, but because the film has stretched it out into 2 parts, because it's made so much more space, because it's breathed new life into it, as any new adaptation has the opportunity to do, there is the possibility it has also made elements of the stage production look a little less vibrant, vital, and fresh than perhaps they did just under 2 decades ago. Meaning there's a lot of pressure on the stage productions to look and sound their best. And when I saw the show in London back in September for the 19th anniversary gala performance, I had a great time because it was Wicked, but I did think that parts of it felt just that little bit fatigued. And not to lay the blame at the feet of any specific company members, but there are a lot of people within that cast who have been with the show for a long time. And I think a lot of performers are really excited to book Wicked, and maybe that dwindles a little bit after like multiple contracts, multiple years in the show, returning to the show years later. And again, not true for everyone. I think it was a huge treat for us to get Alexia Kadim returning to the role of Elphaba. But I was really excited for the possibility of a largely new cast coming to the show, and I'm very excited about the ones that we have. So, without any further context, let me tell you about the newly announced performers for Wicked in the West End, where you might know them from their previous work on the stage, and why I'm so excited about it. Because I very rarely book tickets for first performances and cast changes. This is a big deal for me. So the headline news here is that Emma Kingston and Zizi Strallen will be playing the roles of Elphaba and Glinda respectively. And when I tell you the vocals are going to sound astonishing and exciting, and I mean, I'm just thrilled by this. Emma Kingston, I have been a huge fan of her voice for the longest time. I have seen 2 concerts with incredible vocalists in the lineup that she has stopped dead cold with her extraordinary vocal performances. I truly believe she is one of the top 10 musical theatre vocalists in the world right now. She is remarkable, and the industry has been kind of slow to wake to that. Like, she's been on a bunch of concert lineups, but I really don't think still, either in the West End or on Broadway, she has had the respect that she deserves for how freaking talented this woman is. One of those concerts was an outdoor one at Chichester Festival Theatre years ago. The other one was Children of Eden in concert, where she was a last-minute replacement for Alice Fern, and I still get goosebumps thinking about her performance of Ain't It Good. Truly sent the entire place into a frenzy. It was sensational. Performances like that redefine what show-stopping means, and then you understand it. You're like, oh, that's what stopping a show was. Like, the show is stopped now because she stopped it. That's what happened. She's also, I think, a very underrated actress. I enjoyed her in Heathers, but particularly in The Band's Visit at the Donmar Warehouse, where she was an alternate performer. More on that concept momentarily. And I think her Elphaba, particularly her Elphaba in Act 2, is going to be intense and passionate and dramatic, and I'm very excited about it. But I'm also very excited to hear her sing every last section of this score. It is going to be thrilling. One of the most robust, reliable, confident voices that you could possibly bring to this role. I have been waiting for her Elphaba for a long time. This, to me, always seemed inevitable. I have a list in my head of Elphabas. It's not an infinite list. There's maybe 7 or 8, and this is one of the names from right up at the top ticked off with this casting. And if the casting team are watching, I'm happy to provide the other 7 names for consideration, although at least one of them has been in for it regularly in the past. I also think, just as an additional detail, that Emma is the first Jewish actress to play Elphaba in the UK since Adina originated it back in 2006, but I don't know about that concretely. And if I were to try and think what is going to be the most thrilling moment of her playing this role, I do think she's going to be a no good deed Elphaba. If anyone listens to the Sentimental Men podcast, and may I recommend it if you are Wicked fans, and for any reason you are not listening, they really explore their love and enthusiasm and knowledge of the show with brilliant comedy and passion, and it's just wonderful listening. They often interview performers who have played the roles, and they ask, are you a Wizard and I Elphaba? Are you a Defying Gravity Elphaba? Are you a No Good Deed Elphaba? Are you the elusive I'm Not That Girl Elphaba? I think Emma Kingston is going to be a No Good Deed Elphaba. The growling, the scale of the song, even if the Wicked is running such a tight ship these days that we get not one additional riff anywhere within the show, I just know that hearing this come through her vocal cords is going to be a legitimately thrilling experience. Because she has a quintessential Elphaba voice. Take a little bit of Adina, take a little bit of Eden Espinosa, actually, take a lot of Eden Espinosa, take a little Stephanie J. Block, take a little Lindsay Mendez, take a lot of Barbara Streisand, who of course, you know, I believe would have been Elphaba had the timings lined up. She may yet still try to, you never know. And you would get something resembling the sensational voice of Emma Kingston. Throw a little Carrie Ellis in there. Throw a little Rachel Tucker and Alice Fern in there. She's amazing. But from casting so brilliant that I'd been anticipating it for years to casting equally brilliant that I couldn't have thought of but instantly fell in love with, we have Zizi Strallen as Glinda. Now, Zizi is still best known to British audiences for having played the role of Mary Poppins in the musical Mary Poppins, both on tour around the country and subsequently at the Prince Edward Theatre in London's West End. If you're a fan of the show, it's recently headed back out on tour. If anyone hasn't seen Mary Poppins yet, it's my favorite of the Disney stage musicals. But even in that role, Zizi really made it her own and took this score. This is the thing about her. She took this score that had previously been sung in a very specific, sort of light, head voicey, lovely, Julie Andrews, Mary Poppins-esque way. And she, with this extraordinary mix that is very familiar of her Aunt Bonnie Langford, if you didn't know, she placed it in this fascinating mix placement where it's like a half belt, half head voice, and there was such a power and such a piercing resonance to the way that she sang Mary Poppins. They did a live recording of the London return of the show. If you haven't listened to that yet, go and listen to her singing Practically Perfect. Go and listen to her singing the end of Brimstone and Treacle Part 2. It's insane how little of this score she truly goes up into head voice for, and I am awestruck thinking about her vocal cords singing Glinda. Not only that, she is hysterically funny. I mean, she's sensationally talented. I think Zizi Strallen is one of the most brilliant, like, multi-talented, true, genuine triple threats that we have, because she's a dancer. She has done Matthew Bourne out-and-out dance shows. She will be kicking her head whenever you see her on stage. She will be dancing up a storm. We saw her do that last year in Pippin in concert. We saw her do that at the back of the stage in Mary Poppins, where Mary, as a character who is not meant to kick above 90 degrees because it's considered showing off, had to hide in the back of Step in Time or do it just like right at the end towards the end of the run to get away with it. We've also seen her be hilarious on stage in shows like Cake and Rock Follies at Chichester Festival Theatre. And since Mary Poppins, it has been fascinating to watch her really come into her own and play these different types of roles. And Glinda is such an exciting fit for her, but I think she's going to truly make it her own. A Zizi Glinda doesn't look identical to any Glinda I think we've ever had before, either in the West End or on Broadway. And I've said a lot previously about Glindas in the UK because they use the British accent and because that carries with it the posh boarding school girl demeanour, and they have to be a little more prim and proper and less crazed than the Broadway Glindas. I've said before that they're not nearly as fun in songs like Popular, but Zizi always finds a way to be hilarious and unhinged while being posh at the same time. The secret to which may be that I think she's a little bit of all three of those things in real life in the most wonderful way. I'm a huge fan of hers. If you don't know, she comes from this stage dynasty. Her parents met while in Cats. She is one of 4 sisters, all of whom have performed on the stage. Her older sister, Scarlett Strallen, was one of the first actresses to play Mary Poppins before Zizi did. Summer Strallen, of course, has also been on the stage. Her younger sister is Saskia Strallen. Their aunt is Bonnie Langford, but her mother, Sharida Langford, was just seen in the Wicked movie. She plays the librarian in the Dancing Through Life scene that Jonathan Bailey flirts with, and good for her. Good for you, Sharida Langford. I actually saw her at the Wicked screening that I saw just before the film was released. She was seeing it with Zizi and Summer, and I gave her, Sharida, a little clap to say, well done, and she said thank you. That was a sweet moment. But I am so excited about Zizi doing Wicked. When was the last time we saw Zizi Strallen wearing a blonde wig? That's something my brain can't even process. Is she going to be kicking her head during Popular? You know, there's a section of that song where they get a little bit of free reign in terms of their physicality. Like the stuff that Megan Hilty used to do during that number was crazed. It wasn't dance-based, but it was crazed. And more importantly, what is this score going to sound like in her voice? When Louise Dearman played Glinda, there was that iconic belted moment in The Wicked Die Alone, because Louise had a much stronger belt than many of the actresses who have played Glinda, hence why Louise went on to become the first actress to play Glinda and Elphaba as a principal performer in the West End. But with Zizi, it is that high mix. I think so much of the score that we normally hear in a very floaty, like, goodness knows, is going to become a goodness knows. I just think there's going to be a weight to it and a force to it, and I'm going to be shaking in my seat at the Apollo Victoria Theatre. If you couldn't tell, I'm excited. However, Wicked is not just a show about 2 witches. There are many more cast members who have been announced for the production as well. Let me talk you through the rest of this press release. So they are joined by principal cast members Carl Mann, Sarah Ingram, Michael Matus, Hannah Qureshi, David McKechnie, Ross Carpenter, Laura Emmett, and Lydia Gerard. Let me tell you the roles that each of these are playing. So, first of all, Wicked London is welcoming back Carl Mann as Fiyero, who has just finished playing that same role on the show's UK tour, which was kind of a breakthrough moment for Carl, who had been in the ensemble of And Juliet previously. I think after having been in the ensemble of Wicked and understudying Fiyero in the West End, he is now returning as a principal performer. This is hugely exciting. I haven't had the chance to see him play the role. I didn't get to see the tour. I'm very excited to see him returning to this company and getting to maybe, bring a few more of the distinctive choices he's been able to make on tour now that he's been principal Fiyero to the role. I also think throughout this casting in terms of Wicked's ongoing commitment to diversity, which it had come under a little bit of criticism for previously, and that hasn't entirely gone away, but it is admirable to see more Asian and South Asian performers in the principal cast. Hannah Qureshi, who's previously appeared in Hamilton, will be joining the cast as Nessa Rose. Ross Carpenter, who has previously appeared in The Book of Mormon, will be playing the role of Bok. He just got finished playing Peter Pan in pantomime. How's that for a pipeline for you? Sarah Ingram and Michael Matus, meanwhile, will play Madame Morrible and the Wizard. And this, according to the press release, will mark the 4th production that they have appeared in together. Good for them. David McKechnie, meanwhile, is going to be playing the Wizard. Lydia Gerard, who was also in the touring company as a cover for the role of Glinda, will now be becoming standby Glinda in the West End. What this means is that she won't be on stage at every performance, but she will be waiting, literally standing by, in case she needs to go on for Glinda. So, under circumstances when Zizi is unable to perform or is not scheduled to perform, Lydia Gerard will be the first port of call to play the role. An exciting opportunity for her. But what's really thrilling is that finally, after years of us demanderating it, begging them to do it, they have put in place an Elphaba alternate. This is huge news for a show that is nearly 20 years old, for a show that is on Broadway and in the West End simultaneously, with replica productions, with other versions touring around the UK, touring around the US, happening internationally. They have been so set in their ways. They have not had an alternate this whole time. The production for years, wherever it's been, has been riddled with vocal challenges and vocal help for the actresses playing Elphaba. So many have spoken about the very strict lives that they need to lead in order to sing this role 8 times a week, and how extraordinarily challenging it is. Meanwhile, far easier sings the likes of Eva Peron and, maybe even Norma Desmond, and certainly Christine Daae in The Phantom of the Opera have always had alternates, the Angela Weber of it all possibly being a big factor there. Tina Turner in the West End, which I do think is one of the hardest roles on stage right now. No performer is doing 8 performances a week under a usual schedule unless something has gone very wrong. There is no good reason why Elphaba should still be doing 8 shows a week. And finally now she won't be, because Laura Emmett, who has previously been with the company, I think around a decade ago as a second cover, is now going to be alternate Elphaba, meaning she will get at least 1 scheduled performance every week. Which is great for so many reasons, because it means Emma won't have to do all 8. And guess what? Most Elphabas don't end up doing all 8. Certainly in the West End production, there have been many instances over the last few years where they have struggled because of having to go down to second and third covers. There are many covers for the role of Elphaba because they know how vocally demanding this is. They know what happens. And in fact, sometimes there are additional secret covers because after Laura Pick left the show, after Rebecca Gilliland left the show, they both went on podcasts and talked about the fact that they have been brought back in, after leaving the company to just sit in the building on certain weekends in case they were needed. They have had them on call because they thought, sometimes they need a backup Elphaba. That is how the situation has been. So it is so smart, it is so timely to finally have an alternate Elphaba. I'm thrilled they've brought this in, and it's brilliant because you have more of a chance of getting to see the performer that you would like to see. If you want to go see Emma Kingston, if you want to go see Laura Emmett, there is a greater chance that Emma is going to be doing the show she's scheduled to do. You can now know with certainty that you get to go and book a show that Laura's going to do. A lot of Wicked fans like to go and see all of the covers and like to go and collect them. As creepy as that sounds, it's actually very supportive. And also, as we've seen with 6, when you actually give a performer that platform and make them an alternate in that kind of an official capacity, it does a lot to furnish their name and help to launch them. They're not playing the role as a principal, but it's still a big deal. I don't think this necessarily has to be implemented for Glinda alongside, because I think for a lot of sopranos, Glinda vocally is a walk in the park. I would like to see this implemented on Broadway. We will see. We will find out what happens on that front. But I think this is a very good move for Wicked. Finally then, let me tell you about the rest of the 2025/26 company. It's completed by Eroy Abusamis, Zach Adlam, Steph Asamoah, Meg Aston, Rebecca Bowden, Sean Chambers, Erin Giselle Chapman, Grace Durkin, Onyemachi Ejiofor, Aaron Elijah, Amy Hodnett, Nat Ingham, Holly Lawrence, Jemima Loddy, Josh Lovell, Rory Maguire, Paddy Jo Martin, Jojo Meredith, Aidan Morgan, Rena Panwani, Abby Quinnen, Gemma Revell, Jeannie Ryan, Charlotte Ann Steen, Chris Tarsi, Hannah Taylor, James Titcher, Kitchener, and Jacob Young. Apologies if I have butchered the pronunciation of anyone's names. I'm very excited to see you all on stage. And the only final detail I need to give you is that this company is going to begin performances on Tuesday, the 25th of March, 2025, with the current cast set to finish on Sunday, the 23rd of March. You may be wondering why the Wicked cast announcement has come as late as it has this time. Normally, we would have found out by late 2024. Well, there was a lot going on in late 2024 to do with Wicked, and it would have been challenging for them to surface above all of that noise and talk about the London cast. So I dare say they deliberately planned to let a little bit of the Wicked movie noise die down in early January before they start marketing Wicked for good, which, you know, may start happening as early as February. I think they very smartly decided that this was the perfect window to announce the Wicked London cast, and maybe for the same reason we will see the Broadway cast soon. It's been very interesting actually seeing Wicked the musical putting a certain amount of distance between themselves and the film, and you know, that's fair enough because film adaptations of stage musicals have a little bit of a checkered past, and something like the Dear Evan Hansen adaptation may even have played a role with its poor reception in the premature closing of the Broadway and West End productions of the show not too far apart. Given Wicked's hugely positive reception, however, and the already evident impact that's having on the stage production, it will be very interesting to see how they behave ongoingly as the film begins to market the next film, The Wicked for Good. It'll be interesting to see whether the show embraces that and tethers themselves to it a little bit more. It's going to be, in any case, a hugely exciting year for Wicked. I can't wait to go back and see it at the Apollo Victoria. If I don't see it between now and then, which I don't anticipate happening, but who knows? That will also be the first time I've seen it on stage since the film, and I will be so intrigued to see if I feel differently about going back and seeing the original version now that we've seen it more extended and more fleshed out. I'm fascinated by what this is going to feel like. And of course, I will be here making a video about it when I do and letting you know what I think of the new cast and what the experience was like and whether it does breathe that little bit of life back into this beloved show. So make sure you're subscribed right here on YouTube with the notifications turned on, or follow me on podcast platforms so you don't miss that content when it comes out in a couple of months' time. In the meantime, there will be plenty more to say about all of the other shows happening in the West End and on Broadway. Many more reviews and feature pieces coming soon right here on my Stagey YouTube channel. Before then, though, I want to know what you think of this casting. Comment with all of your thoughts down below. Will I be seeing you at the first performance on the 25th of March? Let me know. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a stagey day.
For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey, thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!